So we are. No, I'll have to use my my mouse, but we are starting to talk about. We're starting to talk about skin. Okay. That's better. So I can choose these guys. So skin consists of two layers, as you can see on this illustration. The superficial layer here, that's epidermis, and the deeper layer, that's dermis. Okay? Functionally, obviously, the main function of the skin is that it is a barrier. Prevents the loss of water, prevents the entrance of microorganisms, protects against mechanical, chemical, infectious, and UV light induced problems. You can argue that it's important homeostatically for identification, communication, but even to the extent that all external features are important for reproduction because we find mates based on a number of characteristics, and many of them are external. It is a key partner in thermoregulation, and of course, a lot of sensory perception. Okay? So if you look at the superficial layer of the skin, known as epidermis, superficial layer of the skin known as epidermis, there are two types. There's a thick skin, palms, toes, soles, fingers, and thin skin, the rest of the body. Okay? So, thick skin has 5 layers. Thin skin has 4 layers. The superficial layer, this one, stratum corneum, it is dead. Okay? All good? So it's dead. The surface of the skin that you can see, those are dead cells. Okay? Now, epidermis is the epithelial tissue. So there are several layers to it. I'm going to highlight them here, and I'm going to refer to this part. So it's epidermis, it's stratified squamous epidermis. Stratified squamous epithelium. And we're going to go from the bottom to top. Because the idea of having stratified squamous epithelium on your surface is because your skin experiences abrasion. So you're losing the outer layers of the skin. Make sense? And like by the time you leave this class, under your chair there will be from 1 to 2 million dead skin cells of yours. It is estimated that during the average lifetime, an average person loses, on average, the mass of skin equivalent to that person's body mass. So if you kind of 200 pounds, you can lose 200 pounds of skin over time, which means these layers, the outer ones, have to be replenished. Make sense? So the replenishment comes from the fact that the bottom layer of the skin here, the basal layer, stratum basale, okay, the only layer that contains cells that are both alive and mitotically active, in other words, can divide. Okay? So these cells are actually, they look more like cuboidal cells. Okay, you with me? So the cells, these stem cells stem keratinocytes. They can divide and they are alive. As they divide, they push the superficial layers of the skin to the top. So effectively they allow to replace the skin layers that are lost due to the abrasion. All good so far, everybody? Okay. So you need to know the contents of each layer. So if I ask you which cells are present in the basal layer, you tell me, well, first of all, it's keratinocytes. The stem cell version that can divide and is alive. In addition to them, to those keratinocytes, you also have melanocytes. Okay, so that's skin color, and Merkel cells. So Merkel cells are responsible for sensation of touch, very fine touch. Okay, so good? So far so good? Okay. Try to do something real quick. Right. So next layer, so again, summary. Dividing keratinocytes, Merkel cells that are sensory of touch, and melanocytes that determine the color of the skin. Then we have a layer of still living cells, keratinocytes. But these guys, remember I mentioned the word differentiate. So when these keratinocytes right here, when they divide, they differentiate as well and lose their ability to divide. So these guys right here, they're not dividing. Okay? They're still alive though. All good? In addition to those non-dividing but still alive keratinocytes, you've got Langerhans cells. So these cells are immune cells. In case something gets into the skin, Langerhans cells will serve as sentinels, watching for the invasion. Question? Langerhans.
Yeah, is it L-A-N-G?
Okay. L-A-N-G. Okay. Make sense? Right. So as cells are being pushed upwards in this layer called stratum granulosum, start to die. Okay, they start producing in the skin the protein called keratin, and the organelles start to disassemble. And eventually, they still being pushed upwards, and the thickest layer you can see here. The thickest layer is this stratum corneum, right? All good? Cells are dead. Bags filled with the protein keratin. Am I making sense to you? So, these four layers that I mentioned, stratum basale, stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, and stratum corneum, are present in all types of skin, whether it is thin or thick. Are we good about that? All types of skin, like all over the body, you have these four layers 100%. In the thick skin, which, remember, palms and soles, okay, this is where you're going to find an extra layer. This extra layer, called stratum lucidum, is located between stratum granulosum and stratum corneum. Does that make sense right now? So all skin, 4 layers guaranteed. Thick skin, an extra layer between the granulosum and corneum. So you can expect questions about the content of a layer. General characteristics, like I ask you, this layer contains entirely dead cells filled with keratin. That's stratum corneum. Okay, make sense? So the difference between stratum lucidum and stratum corneum is here, different protein that fills the cells. These, protein L-18, adds extra protection against the UV light, which makes sense. Even when we were Australopithecus africanus, 2 million years ago, whatever, we were pretty hairy, but palms and soles were not, and they were more exposed to the UV light. Any questions right now? So understand the function of the cells as well. Understand the function. Stratum, Langerhans cell, melanocyte, and the Merkel cell. Now, first of all, quick reminder, epithelial tissues are not vascularized. The superficial layer of your skin contains no blood vessels. So if you take, I don't know, a little pen and scratch carefully, you can see the scratch, but it's not going to bleed because there are no blood vessels. Another clinically relevant story, familiar with warts? Yeah? So warts caused by a virus that infects the basal layer of the skin. And this virus, without going into the details, this virus needs the cells to divide very quickly. It effectively forces them to divide. Am I making sense? When the cells divide, they push skin up, you have a growth wart, right? Now remember we were talking about tissues last week, and we were figuring out where you can find stratified squamous epithelium. Do you remember? Skin, where else? Very specific parts. Remember, abrasion forces. Okay, reproductive. There are penile warts. There are vaginal warts. More. There can be warts, albeit rare, in the mouth and the throat. And the last. Say again? Go on. The anus, right. The anus. Yes. Anal warts, okay? All of these are caused by the same group of viruses. And some of them can cause cancer. It's human papillomavirus that causes all the warts, and some types of it can cause cancer. It can be anal cancer, it can be penile cancer. Most common, of course, is cervical cancer, but it can cause cancer in different places. So, pigmentation. This is a fantastic example to illustrate two large and equally important concepts. The concept of evolution and the concept of gene expression, which I love both. So let's start with this illustration. So this is melanocyte. Melanocyte produces melanin, a pigment. And it produces that pigment at a certain basal layer. People who produce more melanin have darker skin. Does that idea make sense? Now, you took biology classes before, I presume, and you had a conversation about gene expression. DNA, the gene is transcribed. You have RNA is translated, you have a protein, right? So the amount of melanin that we can generate, every person can generate, is effectively written in the genome. Am I making sense? So people with darker skin produce more melanin. people with lighter skin produce less melanin. Do you follow my train of thought? So this, people with albinism, do they produce melanin?
No.
They do not. Do they have a gene that is responsible for melanin production?
No.
They do. It's dysfunctional. You see? So the gene, we all have pretty much the same genes, but they may have, in different people, they may have different activity. Okay? Now, this illustrates, and in case of vitiligo, it's patches of skin where this gene is inactive, or that can happen as well. Melanocytes ago. It is, studies demonstrated it is not associated with any pathology whatsoever. Like it's just a feature. Okay? Here's the next illustration of the evolution, the early evolution. So humans, which continent did humans originate on? Africa. So, what was the skin color, do you think? Pretty dark, yeah. Because a lot of sunlight. And melanin protects against the UV exposure. Now, if you think about human migration, we moved sort of north. And if you will compare the amount of sunlight that people in Ireland, Scandinavia receive, it's much less. So producing melanin does not, when you are in the south, having darker skin gives you an advantage. If you're in Sweden, it's not, just not. Okay? And eventually, producing melanin requires extra energy. So slowly, people who do not experience that much of a sun exposure, fairer skin. Vitamin D they find. You still like, well, they should take it. That's a separate story, actually. Good notion. Yes. So if you see the distribution of skin color from like the pole, North Pole, to the equator, native people at the lower latitudes have darker skin because they historically experienced more sunlight. Okay? Now, when you start looking deeper in the skin, under the epidermis, you see the connective tissue, two connective tissues in fact, that represent dermis. So dermis consists of the superficial papillary layer, which consists of loose areolar connective tissue. Okay, and thicker reticular layer, which is composed of dense, irregular connective tissue. Okay, now, all good? Okay. So, we talked about it before. Each tissue, each structure has a purpose, has a function. So, areolar connective tissue serves as a cushion pretty much. There's some white blood cells hanging around. Dense irregular connective tissue, remember the collagen fibers in such tissue, they have different directions. It can withstand the tension going, like if you do this to your skin, you're going to rip it, no matter which direction you pull on it. Does that make sense? Because this collagen fibers will resist that, because they go in all directions. Question? You sure? Oh. Yes, it is. My handwriting is horrible. Not as bad as my kids' handwriting, though, but it's not great. So, irregular, dense, loose areolar. Okay, I know that my R looks like my V. Okay? Okay, so far, we're good? Yeah? Okay, so you need to be able to tell me the layers of the skin, both dermis and epidermis. If I ask you, go from the deep to superficial, and you go reticular layer of dermis, papillary layer of dermis, and then then we have epidermis. Stratum basale, stratum corneum, stratum granulosum, stratum basale, stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, stratum corneum. And if it's a thick skin, we add lucidum. So no bottom to top and top to bottom order. Make sense? I mentioned before the idea of a brain dump. I'll try to bring scratch paper. If you want to just, when you start exam, if you want to write down, go for it, dude. I have no problem with that. Okay? Few superficial features of the skin. So friction ridges. That's your fingerprints. You have fingerprints not only on the fingers, but also in toes. Nobody does toe printing, right? It's inconvenient. So the reason why we call them friction ridges, they help us to grab into things. Makes sense, right? Our fingers should provide a good grip.
Is it like grip and friction?
It's a grip, yeah. Grip and like providing the grip. Cleavage lines. Cleavage lines are quite important. So this image here shows you typical cleavage lines. What are they? I mentioned that collagen fibers in your skin, they, run in all directions. Correct? Just said it. But in each area, there is one dominant direction. And cleavage lines reflect this. Why this is important? If you look at the surgical incisions, if surgical incisions run across the cleavage lines, the collagen fibers will pull on the edges of the wound and they will slower the healing. Okay? But if an incision is made along the lines, then the wound, the edges of the wound are much easier to stitch and the healing is quicker. I'm going to give you an example from our personal life. My wife recently had a surgery on her thigh. So the incision was made like this. Not in any other way. It would work in any other way as an incision to do the surgery. But the incision was deliberately made diagonally to make it along the lines so the incision would heal faster. Make sense? Okay. Flexure lines do not have any functional significance. So here's the deal. Your skin is pretty loose. I mean, when you have to, imagine that if you would make a skin super tight, we wouldn't be able to flex our fingers or knees or whatever. We wouldn't be able to move effectively, okay? Does that make sense? You can see it sometimes with a botched plastic surgery when people get their skin tightened and then they just lose the ability to make expression. So that's the only reason, because it's loose and they're formed around joints. Now hair. So let's talk about hair. This image looks way more frightening than it will be. Trust me on the exam. So things that you need to know about the hair anatomically. The part of the hair that extends over the surface of the skin is called hair shaft. Okay? The part that is within the skin is a root. Okay? You can see that the hair has the erector pili muscle adjacent to it. It is responsible for elevating the hair. And sebaceous gland, which lubricates the hair and releases oily substance called sebum. We'll get back to this in 7 minutes. Right? So the root, the shaft. The very bottom of the root is the hair bulb. This is the enlarged portion of the hair bulb. And let's talk about some stuff that we can find there. So first of all, I want you to acknowledge that's true. Hair is effectively an extension of the skin, more specifically an extension of epidermis. Okay? Skin, the outer layer of your skin. Cells in that layer, are they alive or dead? They're dead. So effectively the hair shaft consists of dead cells. Period. That's it. So all these shampoos that rejuvenate, you cannot rejuvenate a corpse. This is the corpse. Okay? You can provide some chemical substances that will make it look better, but there's nothing to rejuvenate here. Okay? So the idea of the hair growing is similar to the skin development. So you see this layer right here at the very bottom, specifically the one that I aligned. This is called hair matrix. These are effectively keratinocytes. Okay? And these keratinocytes divide and push the hair out. Now, epithelial tissue, does it have blood vessels? No. Remember, epithelial tissue is the only tissue that does not contain blood vessels, and it receives oxygen and nutrients by diffusion from nearby connective tissue, and this connective tissue is right here, which forms a hair papilla. This is where blood vessels are, okay? Let's do this. Feeding the matrix. Okay? Good? So here's my question. Did you work with patients with diabetes? Anyone? Like, okay, somebody didn't, I didn't, I just know what I'm going to say. But if you look at, people who are seriously overweight, have pretty advanced type 2 males, what about hair on the legs? Gone. Because of the lack of blood flow. No blood flow, no supplementation of the matrix, the hair dies, for good. Does that make sense? Another question. Not related to blood flow, though. When people receive anti-cancer chemotherapy, what happens to their hair?
But it regrows fine.
But why does it fall out? What is
The radiation.
So again? No. Chemotherapy. Radiation is a different story. Chemotherapy. Chemo. Somebody receives chemo. Radiation is not chemo. Radiation is irradiating a tumor specifically.
Because it's killing cells, right?
Say again?
Because it's killing cells.
Chemotherapy kills the cells, but not all the cells. It kills cells that do what? That divide how? Say again? Well, yeah, but rapidly. Tumor cells divide rapidly. And these chemicals target specifically quickly dividing cells, which includes the cells of the hair matrix. Yes, go ahead.
So, I've heard, and this could be just bullshit, but they say that corpses' hair continues to grow. Is that just from the skin?
No, that's bullshit. That's
No,
bullshit because
It actually falls out.
they don't really grow. It's the notion is they dry out. People
So
kind
looks
of
like
a
it's
little,
longer?
yeah, it appears longer. Yeah. But yes, you're right. They can regrow after the chemo is over, and usually it will, because there are stem cells that can repopulate, and the hair papilla remains functional. But if you laser hair removal, if you will target a laser here, just burn this whole thing to the ground. There is no blood supply. There is nothing. They cannot. Hair cannot grow. Am I making sense? For the same reason, people who are on chemo develop digestive system symptoms, because the lining of the stomach and the intestine is being renewed every week, roughly. So those cells divide quickly as well. And when you stop them from dividing, it's kind of horrible. Now, this is, in my personal opinion, the worst organ in the human body. Technically, we don't need nails. And we don't need hair. From the physiological perspective, they are obsolete. So what to know about the nail? Okay, let me give this a while. So you have nail body. Obviously, it's most of the nail. The nail grows because of the nail matrix. Same idea as with the hair. Yes, exactly. Nail bed is the bottom part. You can see the nails appear to be pink. Nails themselves are transparent. But blood vessels that run around the nail bed give it a pink appearance. Okay? So the nail is anchored by the nail fold. Okay, the part of the nail that's anchored is the root. And cuticle is called eponychium. The under the edge is called hyponychium, and that is free edge. Okay, so anyone ever got lost a nail?
Yeah.
Does it hurt?
Yeah.
After it's removed?
Yeah.
Well, I lost 3 or 4 of them on my feet, and it was fine. The process of losing it was not pleasant, but once they were gone, it's okay. Okay? Now let's talk about the glands. So we have 2 big categories. We have sweat glands, we have sebaceous glands. Am I clear? So let's start with the sebaceous. Sebaceous glands, you can see the sebaceous gland next to the hair. Sebaceous glands produce sebum. Consists of so-called short-chain fatty acids. You don't need to know that. So sebum is the oily substance that lubricates the hair. People have different levels of sebum production. Okay? And the more sebum, the oilier the skin and the oilier the hair. Okay? Now, sebum is oily. Which body parts do not have sebaceous glands? Palms and soles, yes. Okay? Palms and soles do not have sebaceous glands because you don't want them oily.
So when people hand sweat, that means that's like,
Say again?
when people hand sweat,
That's sweat. That's different.
Oh.
That's sweat. That's watery. That's not oily. Sweaty hands are watery. Okay? It's not oily. Does that make sense?
What did you say doesn't have sebation?
Say again? So sebaceous glands are not present on palms and soles because you don't want that oily substance there. Okay? Now, when people start experiencing really, really oily skin, puberty, right? During puberty, our skin turns super oily because we increase production of estrogen if we're talking about females, and testosterone if we're talking about males. Question? Go on. The palms and soles. Okay, no, it's fine. So we produce a lot of sebum when our testosterone or estrogen kicks in, right? What skin condition is often associated with puberty? Yes. Is it? What causes it? Root cause, huh? not just that too. Bacteria. So within the hair follicle, like in these pockets, a bacteria called Propionibacterium acnes hangs out since you're born, and it feeds on sebum. Okay? Go on.
So why do we get hands on our knuckles?
Say it again.
Hair on our knuckles.
Oh, it just grows there. What do you mean? Hair, like, that's the part of the skin that contains hair. So this bacteria, we have hair, like people have different.
I'm saying females.
Oh, there is some basal level of testosterone. Females still produce, no, seriously. Males have basilar estrogen. Huh?
I said on our face and everything.
Yeah, a little bit. Compared to males, like if the female does not have endocrine abnormalities, namely adrenogenital syndrome, then it can be some hair here, some hair there, but not a beard, you know. Anyway, so this when we're done, I will explain one possible mechanism for increased hair production on the face. So, okay, that bacteria, when we produce a lot of sebum, overgrows, causes inflammation of the hair follicles, acne. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will make an attempt to ruin a food for you. There's a type of cheese, Swiss cheese, that is super smelly, right? So they take milk, put some bacteria in it, it gets fermented, it smells, it tastes great, but the smell it smells a little bit like very well-worn socks, okay? The group of bacteria that ferments milk produces cheese is the same group of bacteria that Propionibacterium belongs to. So if somebody would pop a zit, spread it between the fingers and smell it, it smells like Swiss cheese. It's the same type of fermentation, producing the same type of chemicals. Okay? Now, sebaceous glands are holocrine, which means that cells die before they release, in order to release the sebum. Making sense? Okay. Now, sweat glands produce sweat. There are two types of sweat glands. First are merocrine glands. So merocrine sweat glands produce, we call it hypotonic, I call it watery sweat. So it's a lot of water, a little bit of sodium chloride. So water, salt, a little bit of antibacterial protein dermicidin. But mostly water and sodium chloride. So the function of that sweat is mostly thermoregulation. When you work out or just work outside in the heat, and your forehead is sweaty, your palms are sweaty, your torso, your arms, your legs, that's hypotonic sweat, that's merocrine sweat glands. They are active since we are little kids. Okay? So they are merocrine, which means they secrete sweat through the vesicles. It's clean, for instance, if I would go for a run and I would sweat, I would come home, my dog would start licking my legs because they're salty. Okay? Well, they like salt. Now, apocrine sweat gland is a little bit different.
So,
Go ahead.
does that explain why you like to somebody sweat at this all?
Yeah, it is. But let's say if you collect it from your forehead, it's going to be salty, yes. Because it's salty.
How do you know that it's salty?
Now, what about, say again, what was the question?
I said, how do you know if it's salty?
You taste it. Like, get some sweat and taste it. Huh? Yeah. Like, if you sweating really hard and gets in your mouth, you can taste that it's salty. Okay. Apocrine sweat. Apocrine sweat is produced by apocrine sweat glands that are located in the smelly areas, namely armpits and groin. And these glands, I don't have it here, but they become active around the time we hit puberty. So, huh? Apocrine. Apocrine gland around puberty. A little bit before. So basically, like you have a 5-year-old, like 10-year-old angel, and 2 years later it's smelly teenager, right? Not teenager yet. So a lot of organic compounds. Why? Because the secretion is apocrine. Apocrine glands chop off the piece of the cell to secrete. So you have all the sweat plus all the organic compounds that are in that chunk of the cell. This is kind of boring. The image just shifted. So, okay, erector pili muscle right here. The red rectangle was supposed to be over this and this structure. If you think about the name erector, lifts, pili, hair. So hair lifting muscle. Can we lift our hair voluntarily?
Yes.
Yes.
Show me.
Oh, wow.
Well, when you get goosebumps.
Yes, but you get
Like make the
goosebumps.
hair on your skin stand
Like you
up?
sit and say, I'm going to raise my hair.
Oh,
Right? No, that doesn't happen.
Physically, you can.
No. No, not with your hands. What I'm saying is, okay, misunderstanding. What I'm saying, can you sit and tell these muscles, raise my hair?
No.
No. What do you need to do? Like, what should happen to you?
That's involuntary, right?
They work involuntarily,
Yeah.
but what, like, when?
Fear.
Fear,
Fear.
hold,
Yeah.
huh?
So like what makes the hair stand up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shock.
Fear and shadow.
When you shocked and like you were afraid, right?
Yeah.
Or when you cold. Why would your hair stand if you cold? There are two reasons. When muscle contracts, it produces energy. Each muscle is super small, but there are a lot of them. When they contract, they produce heat, and that protects you a little bit from cooling down. There's another reason.
So what about
The name? No,
does hair make the hair stand up?
no. That I don't know. I never heard about that. But when you get all fluffy, hypothetically, let's say we're not talking about a human body, we're talking about a cat. When a cat gets fluffy, how does the fluffiness help with cold?
Makes them look like bigger.
That's fear.
Okay.
That's
Oh,
fear.
gotcha, sorry.
Makes them look bigger, so hair stands up because it makes an organism look bigger. This is why cats get all fluffy when they're scared. But if an animal is cold and the hair gets fluffy, it traps air and provides better insulation. Okay? We can achieve neither. Our hair does not provide, we cannot scare the opponent by having goosebumps, right? This is why I argue that hair is not really necessary. And then you have a bunch of nerve receptors. You just need to know they are there. Okay? That makes sense? Now, I was wondering if somebody's going to ask me one of my favorite questions.
I got a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, since we on the topic of skin,
Right.
and our body is 70% water, why do they say we shouldn't bathe every day?
Oh, we shouldn't?
Yes.
Yeah, because we have a bunch of beneficial microorganisms on our skin.
Mm-hmm.
And by bathing, you mean like taking a shower, all of that?
Yes.
Yeah,
all
yeah,
of
yeah.
that.
Because we effectively remove those beneficial microorganisms from our skin and lose some degree of protection. There was a study showing that people who shower more frequently are more prone to respiratory infections because they skin microbes are less populous and less diverse, and other bad microbes can land in the skin pretty much. There's one guy suggests, I don't remember.
But they do reproduce themselves.
Yeah, but if you okay, sorry, it's a bit of a tangent, but obviously there is taking a shower to clean and taking a shower to sort of commiserate about the lack of sense in life and just all the struggles that we go through and just think, I don't want to go to work, right? So those are two different showers. I'm talking about scrubbing. Scrubbing is not good. Standing under running water, go for it. It's fine.
So exfoliating your skin is not good.
So again?
Exfoliating your skin every day is not good.
Every day? No.
And they say you should only take showers or baths like 10 minutes or less.
Girl, who you
Well, it all gets recorded. I cannot say my response to those people, but I'm going to take my. Okay, let's move on with the conversation. Yeah, you should. But nobody asked me one really important question.
Do you not have hair because you don't like hair and don't think it's necessary?
No, just easy. It's very skin-related question, really. Skin, like the skin layer, right? The epidermis constantly grows and we lose it. Yeah? How do we what? Say again?
Why?
What do you mean why? Because the outer cells are dead and they're falling off because of abrasion, so it constantly grows. Renewed, yeah. How do we keep tattoos?
Oh, because the ink goes underneath the surface.
Yes, the ink goes into the dermis. And there are immune cells that consume the ink, die, other immune cells come over, consume the dead cells with the ink, die, and in here, immune cells, constantly consume that. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So that means your body's working, so you're just working double time when you get tattoos?
A lot, really not. Okay, now let's chat about the various skin pathologies. So this is not going to be complicated. Hear me out. So this is eczema, right? Eczema can be of two origins. Please, if you can, because I try to speak over, and it really, okay, we can talk, just a little quiet. Eczema. Two main reasons. One, you wash your hands too much, you remove that oily protection. The water starts evaporating, dry skin, right? Second, autoimmune, atopic dermatitis, that kind of stuff. That's autoimmune condition. What can I say? So you can treat it with topical steroids. Now they advertise some new drug. I didn't look into this. We already mentioned warts, bacterial infections. I put 3. So you basically have impetigo, which is that's superficial. It looks bad. It doesn't really hurt. It doesn't itch. Okay. It's a bacterial infection. This is erysipelas. This is the infection of dermis and subcutaneous tissue. Basically, you have infection there. These areas are warm and tender to the touch because of the inflammation. Okay. And this right here, this is called skin syndrome. Okay. Fairly common in children and infants. And what happens, bacterial infection breaks the connection between epidermis and dermis. And what you see here is epidermis falling off. Okay, it's treatable. It's all treatable with antibiotics. Okay, it can go farther, but I did not include connective tissue, and I did not include any fungal diseases like Gottlieb's foot because it's more of a microbiology thing. Okay, cancers. Basal cell carcinoma. Think about the name, basal cell, right? So it originates in the stratum basale. Those keratinocytes, can they divide in the basal layer? Yeah. So what happens here? They start dividing more often. So you push the cells out of their normal process of division, but not by much. This is the least metastasizing version of the skin cancer. Treatment is surgical removal, and it's outpatient. So you go into dermatologist's office, they just burn it with laser and then go back.
Which layer did you say?
It's a basal layer. So these cells, this originates in the stratum basale. Okay, no, it's fine. Okay? So mostly on the face. Then you have squamous cell carcinoma. So this cancer originates in the stratum spinosum. So here's the deal. Remember when we were talking about the layers, we mentioned that stratum spinosum contains cells that are alive, but they do not divide. How does that happen? Cells do not divide because the signals in the cell stops it from dividing. But it doesn't lose the potential for division. It can divide if those breaks will be removed. This is what happens in squamous cell carcinoma. The mechanisms that prevent division are removed, cell starts to divide, proliferation results in the tumor. These tumors are more invasive, more likely to metastasize. And then finally, melanoma, completely out of the blue, melanocytes. Okay? So while this cancer, basal cell carcinoma, is common in the face, and squamous cell carcinoma is common on, the head in general, and the head and hands, melanoma can arise anywhere. It is the most aggressive. It very easily metastasizes, but there are treatments now that are fairly effective. Now, what is the main risk factor for developing skin cancer? Say again? Well, UV light in general, yes. If you bake yourself 10 hours a day to the direct sunlight, it's not great. Okay? But more and more data suggest now that it is true for these two guys, but not for melanoma. Melanoma appears to be way more genetically determined. Think about the position. Your face, is it exposed to the UV on a regular basis? It is. Your head and your scalp and your hands, are they exposed? Yes. But this is an example on a is it a toe? I think it's a toe. Yeah, on a toe. Not really. You wear shoes. Okay? So it can be anywhere. So most likely it's a genetic component. Burns. So different textbooks illustrate the burns by first, second, third, and sometimes fourth. I think fourth degree as well. So first degree, this is epidermis. Okay? So let's say you are in the kitchen and you, by mistake, grab a handle of a skillet that is real hot. You quickly realize that, you release the skillet, you understand that you burned yourself. What should you do to prevent the burn from developing? Cold water. Stagnant or running? For how long? 10 minutes minimum. 10 minutes. Most boring 10 minutes in my life. When you cannot, you stand with your hand under the running water for 10 minutes. Not my development. A friend of ours he started his residency as a surgeon in the burn unit at UH. That came from him. 10 minutes. Okay? So since only epidermis is involved, all you see is a redness. Okay? Second degree burns, you can see a second degree burn right here. They involve blisters. Okay, so because epidermis and dermis are involved, so you have accumulation of fluid because of the inflammation. probably most people in this room had at some point in their life second-degree burns. They're not pleasant. One of my classmates from school, high school, received second-degree burns on the face when somebody splashed a lighting fluid in a bonfire, just to, like, and it accidentally somehow landed on her face, and she recovered, completely, fully recovered, nothing, no scars, nothing, but it's not a blister in the hand. It looks very bad. Okay. Third-degree burns. Epidermis, dermis, subcutaneous layer, all dead. Okay, so you can see a third-degree burn here. Treatment, amputation, or skin grafts if it's on the trunk. Okay, it's a problem. Fourth-degree burn, pretty much everything is burnt like it's a charcoal, effectively. Okay, all burned, thoroughly and completely. Like this is dead. Fourth degree is burned. Now, in addition to understanding the differences, like, so for burns, you need to understand which layers are involved and sort of what the appearance is going to look like. Okay, no images, don't worry, I'm not going to show the images. I will ask you about the rule of 9, though. Rule of 9, that's rule of 9s. So you see that lady? So what you're looking at is the what's called anterior or ventral aspect of the body. Agreed? So it's a front. You see these numbers? These numbers show you what percentage of the body surface belongs to a particular body part. So the anterior or ventral surface of your entire arm is 4.5. The posterior dorsal surface is the same. For example, your trunk, anterior, 18. So posterior is 18 as well. This is why we call it the rule of 9s. Because all these numbers, like if you start thinking about the whole part for the head, it is 9. For an entire arm, it's 9. For an entire trunk, back and forth, it's 36, which is 9 multiplied by 4. Am I making sense? For the legs, each leg is 18, which is 9 multiplied by 2. Okay? If you add, go ahead.
You said the whole trunk, front and back is
36.
multiplied by 4.
18, multiple. 18, 18. Total of 36. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Now, if you add all those numbers together for the entire body, you will get 99%. Last 1% is perineum. It is the space between the anal orifice and external genitalia. Okay?
So that's what BSA is based off of?
What?
BSA, like body surface area?
Yeah, this is body surface area, rule of 9. So, the question that you can totally expect, I give you a description. Patient has burn on the anterior aspect of the head. What percentage is affected? 4.5. Clear?
Yeah.
I promise that the numbers are going to be like, if you know the rule of 9s, super easy. I'm not going to give you like 26, 27, 28, 29%. Okay? Am I clear? Right? Good. You don't need, I'm not going to ask criteria for critical burns. No. And the last bit for today's discussion is the process of inflammation and repair. So here's what I want you to understand. Listen. So first of all, let's define the concept of injury. See that? Injury is anything, not necessarily mechanical damage to the tissues. Okay? When you cut your skin, it's injury. When you have an infection, it's an injury. When you have a bunch of dead cells that died for some reason, like in your internal organ, it's an injury. Injury results in inflammation, which is illustrated here, I'll explain. And inflammation leads to repair. Those are real terms. Like it's not, I didn't make up injury, inflammation, repair. It's science. So let's say we're going to use skin as an example. So let's say you get this cut, I don't know, you cut bread, okay? So you get through the epidermis. Are there blood vessels in epidermis?
No.
No, but there are in the dermis. So you cut through those blood vessels, they start bleeding, and the blood clots. Two purposes of clotting. One, to prevent you from bleeding out, obviously. And two, when it forms a clot, if there were any organisms, bacteria, something like that, that were on that knife, they are already in, but they trapped in the clot. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, these damaged cells produce these inflammatory molecules which attract white blood cells. So white blood cells, you see, they leave the blood vessel and get into the tissue. Now, you want more white blood cells to arrive to the site of injury to kill bad actors and clean up the debris. Am I making sense right now? So how do you deliver more blood cells? You increase the blood flow. How do you increase the blood flow? Dilate the blood vessels. When there is more blood flow to a certain area of the skin, how does the color of that area change? It gets redder. Redder. So the first sign of the inflammation is redness. Okay? The cells start killing stuff, and these cells that kill the stuff, they're really metabolically active. So they generate a lot of heat locally. So the second sign is warmth. Increased blood flow pushes plasma from your blood into the tissues here. What do we call the situation when there's a fluid in the tissue? Whoever said that. Edema or swelling is the third sign. And both swelling, increased pressure in the tissue, and these chemicals, they result in pain. So classic redness, warmth, edema, and pain. Okay? Now, the cells that surround the injury, the fibroblasts, start producing connective tissue. You see those fibers here? Yeah, so they fill up the gap. Everything's hunky-dory once the connective tissue is fixed. Epithelium regenerates. This, what do we call this? Scar. It can be super small and not really visible, or it can be more significant, right? Now, functionally, I'm not talking about aesthetics, but functionally in the skin, is scar okay? Yeah. Look, you had connective tissue, you replaced it with connective tissue. You had stratified squamous epithelium, you replaced it with stratified squamous epithelium. Make sense? What if you have a patient who had a heart attack? So some of the cells in the cardiac muscle, cardiac muscle cells, they die. Right? Is that an injury? Yeah, it is. Will it result in inflammation? Yeah. Will this inflammation lead to repair? Yeah. The only problem is that the product of repair is connective tissue, not muscle. So that part of the heart becomes effectively useless. Okay? Now you have a patient with COVID-19. They have really screwed up lungs. Okay? They have an injury in the lungs. they have inflammation. What's going to happen? You're going to get the functional alveoli being replaced by the connective tissue, lung fibrosis. Make sense? Still a lung, it's not as stretchable. There are less alveoli, so respiratory capacity will decrease. Does that make sense? I just want you to kind of keep it in mind that while inflammation is absolutely normal, and it should end in repair, not in every tissue, it results in the repair that we want. And chronic inflammation is even worse because it forces the cells to divide, to repair, and if cells keep dividing, they may eventually turn cancerous. Yes. The link between the chronic inflammation and cancer is pretty well established. Sounds good, folks? Yeah. Okay, I will see you upstairs in a minute.